Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Sergiu Celibidache's worst ever recordings. They're all in one box, actually. The box no longer exists because you may recall that Warner/EMI took all of the Munich recordings that were officially released, anyway, most of them, and put them all in one big giant box. So you've got everything all as a mishmash. But originally they came out in separate sets. Well, originally they came out as individual discs, and then they gathered them together in separate boxes. And this is the worst box of all of them. It's the Celibidache Sacred Music and Opera box. He never really did operas, just bits of them. But I'm going to explain to you why this is so bad, because it's a very interesting question in aesthetics. It has to do with Celibidache's theories of epiphenomena and all the other, falderall that went into his concept of music making. And of course, there's going to be a movie about him, and the movie is going maybe to go into some of his more outre aesthetic theorizing. And I'm very curious if they actually get into this, because here's how it shakes out. Essentially, it's this. I did a previous video on what makes music spiritual. And essentially, what it boils down to is the less vocal the music is, the less more naturally like the human singing voice, the slower it is, the less it allows you to phrase and breathe the way it would if a singer were singing the principal melodies, then it becomes more spiritual. It becomes more spiritual because that kind of music that is devoid of melody, or that's based solely on texture and atmosphere, or that has hugely stretched out superhuman qualities. That is, it would take a super being with endless breath supply, or some sort of way to phrase it in a way that just sounds completely inhuman. That sounds spiritual because it's alien. It's strange. It doesn't have that warmth. It doesn't have that naturalness. It lacks those qualities that we associate with the communication of melody through words, right? So Celibidache did all of that in his recordings of instrumental music. He stretched them out to ungodly lengths. He made them sound as inhuman as possible. And because they sound inhuman or suprahuman, something that we could never do in real life, they became, in the ears of certain people, and probably in his own mind, transcendental, or totally focused on the otherworldly. And that's why his Bruckner works so well, by the way, because so much of Bruckner's music is that way. It is not vocal music. It is instrumental music stretched out and amplified in his chorales and brass writing and whatnot and all that stuff, so as to make a deliberately transcendental impression. And it works. It works really, really well. And when you stretch out Bruckner, it only emphasizes those qualities the music already has. But the question then becomes, what happens when you do that to music which does not otherwise have those qualities, or which achieves them in a different way? So let's take the issue of choral music. Choral music is transcendental because you're dealing with a multitude of voices. The idea of the crowd, as opposed to a single soloist, that allows you to achieve a transcendental quality because the voice is a mega voice. It's a superhuman voice, the voice of many, amplified over and over again. But when you have solos and things like that, you're alternating the voice of mankind as a concept, or the voice of, spiritual creatures, versus that of individual human beings. And it's the contrast between the simple song of the individual and that of the mass that creates the transcendental impression that we hear in so many magnificent choral works when they're setting sacred texts. Celibidache does not care what individual voices can do. Now, it's not that they don't try, and it's not that he won't accommodate them to a degree, but his interpretations are not, generally speaking, focused around the singing qualities of the human voice. And as a result, at these excruciatingly slow tempos, with the choral forces stretched to the max in terms of their ability to possibly, sustain the music for as long as it does. The result is just a horrible mess, quite frankly, because you want to have a balance between this transcendental aspect and the music's communicativeness. The idea that the words mean something and that they're being expressed in melodies which have to be phrased the way human beings would phrase them. These are human prayers. They are not the prayers of alien creatures that are existing in a different time and space continuum. So his approach may work now and again for orchestral works where you don't have to deal with actual singing and texts. But when you do, oh, what a mess he makes. And here it is, the box of sacred music and opera. Now, what do you get here? You get the Bach Mass in B minor, which lasts forever, 127 minutes and 51 seconds. I mean, even Klemperer never did anything that, crazy. I mean, he always understood, because he understood at least rhythm and phrasing, even when he was really, really slow. And then you've got the Mozart Requiem, which lasts almost 70 minutes. Oh, God. And the Verdi Requiem, which is 104 minutes. You can fit the Verdi Requiem on one CD now, about 80 minutes, usually 80, a little bit more, 85 minutes. Okay. The Brahms German Requiem, 84 minutes. An hour and 24 minutes to a piece that, 70 minutes. I mean, let's look at the reference recording, which I happen to have right here somewhere. Otto Klemperer, look, here he is. Sacred music. So we have the Brahms German Requiem. No, we don't actually. We have the B minor Mass on discs 1 and 2. Wait a minute. Let me get his Brahms one. Brahms. Sorry about that, folks. Here we go. The Brahms German Requiem. 69 minutes. Nobody would ever say that Klemperer was a speed demon, would we? But the difference between 70 minutes and 84 minutes, I mean, wow, right? Is 15 minutes longer, which is an entire additional couple of movements of the German Requiem. And then we have the Fauré Requiem and the Stravinsky Symphony of Psalms, which he never should have touched either of those pieces. My God, that was ridiculous. And then let's see what else we have here. There are some opera overtures and things like that. Now, of course, when we're dealing with overtures, he's taking them at excruciatingly slow tempos as often as not. But at least instrumental music can do it, because instruments have different mechanisms of sound production. Like violins, they can sustain notes endlessly. That's why they're often used for transcendental type music. I mean, woodwinds, they work on breath. Of course, they work on breath. And so they should be as vocal as possible. But you can get away with it because they're not singing actual words. You can stretch them out. So we've got the world's dullest collection of Rossini overtures. Although the Silken Ladder is only 6 minutes and 48 seconds. That's not so bad. That's kind of normal. And La Gazzaladra, some of these are okay. See, with Rossini, he gets it a little bit. The William Tell Overture is a snoozeroo, and so Semiramide. Ugh. Then we've got La Forza del Destino and Don Giovanni. And you can listen to these and see how he's adapting his particular style to the actual demands of the music. Sometimes he did and sometimes he didn't. Then we've got Berlioz's Roman Carnival, Mendelssohn's The Hebrides, 12 minutes. A Midsummer Night's Dream, which is a couple of minutes slower than it has any right to be, at 14 minutes. Schubert's Rosamunde and Smetana's Ma Vlast, 16 minutes. I mean, the poor river, it's been dammed up. It's flowing like sludge. It's unreal. And then Fledermaus, which is one of his sort of signature pieces. The Oberon Overture and Wagner's Parsifal Good Friday music, and the Tristan and Isolde Prelude and Liebestod, 21 minutes of that. And more Wagner, Meistersinger stuff, Siegfried Idyll, 23 minutes. Oh my God, it's horrendous. The Götterdämmerung Funeral March, okay, that's 9 minutes. I can get away with it. The Tannhäuser Overture, that's reasonable, 16 minutes, and that's what you get in here. But if you listen to the choral music, as opposed to the purely orchestral music where he can play and reveal little themes and things like that, you're going to hear just how incompatible his basic musical theorizing was with the aesthetics of the music that he's actually performing. And he's trying to jam a square peg into a round hole in doing these choral works, and they are brutal. Absolutely brutal. So I just wanted to point that out because it's an interesting question, about a conductor who's going to be back in the news at some point when the film comes out, and we'll have to see what they have to say about it. But in general, the reason he didn't do so much music of the classical period, and when he did do it, it was usually horrendous, is because his theory was just completely inconsistent with the aesthetics of the music of that period. And so it's an interesting question, and I wonder how many of you notice that or hear it if you've listened to these things or understand why it came out the way it is and why it's so wretched as often as not when he does these vocal works. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me, and take care.